Good evening and welcome to Who's Right. I'm Sandra McFadden and I hope you enjoy our show tonight. We're coming to you from the Republican Party of Dane County at the Lincoln Day Dinner. And tonight we're going to have a lot of exciting guests from the dinner throughout the evening. Our first guest is Peter Theron, and Peter, we welcome you. Peter has been the 2nd District Congressional Republican candidate in the past and is currently the chairman of the Republican Party of Dane County Study Committee. So I really want to pick your brain tonight, Peter, especially about, of course, the budget repair bill, which is something that we are going through right now. As we all know, we have protests going on at the Wisconsin we have protests going on here in Wisconsin, and we would like you to give your opinion of what is going on with that repair bill at this moment.
Okay. Thank you, Sandra. Wisconsin has a 2-year budget cycle. So this current budget cycle started in July 1st of 2009 and will then end on June 30th. As you can imagine, with any budget that's started more than 2 years ago, 2 years out, the assumptions change, but the state is required to run a surplus. We cannot have a deficit. So for this budget and for previous budgets, there is the budget repair bill, sometimes more than one, which are proposed by the governor and then acted on by the legislature to typically decrease spending towards the end of a budget biennium so that the ultimate budget is in balance. Currently, we have a deficit of $137 million. This was a number that was agreed to by both the Republicans and the Democrats back in December of 2010. So Governor Walker has proposed that we make up that deficit by refinancing some of the state's debt and also by having the state and local public employees pay a little bit more towards their health care and pay a little bit more towards their pensions.
Right, but Peter, in the past, haven't we had this debt and not paid it? Hasn't this been a debt that we've carried in past years and just let it go by? There's
two things that this is the deficit that we're currently running, and that has been fixed every year. But sometimes the way it is fixed is by improperly borrowing from segregated funds, or by pushing expenses into the next year, or by stealing income from subsequent years. That has created what's called our structural deficit, and that is $3.6 billion, dollars. That was something that Governor Walker will be tackling in his budget bill for the next 2 years.
Okay, so Governor Walker has basically said enough already.
Correct.
I'm not going to be kicking this can down the road anymore. I'm going to fix it, and
yes,
this is what I'm going to do to fix it.
Right. So okay, in some sense, the budget repair bill is almost a down payment on fixing the structural deficit, because it does things now that, rather than stealing money from the next biennium or pushing expenses into the next biennium with such a kind of accounting tricks as, rather than paying your bills on the 29th of June, pay them on the 2nd of July. It's the next fiscal year, so it counts against somebody else. Right. He's not doing that with his budget repair bill. He's setting the stage for, by having the public employees contribute more to their pensions and health care, that savings that we'll also get in the next biennium.
Right.
So some of what he's doing now will help with that structural deficit, but there's more that's going to happen, and that we'll learn when he puts out his budget proposal, which was supposed to come out on Tuesday, but because of the protests, he's moved that back at least 1 week, if not 2.
Right. Now, these Democrats that have gone on the lam, basically, And we're stuck paying their expenses while they're gone, right? And we're still paying their salary.
We're certainly still paying their salaries.
And they're just not working.
That's right.
And what do you feel about that?
Well, essentially, when you run for office, as I have and as they did, you're expected to actually perform the job. And the job is showing up for work. So when there is a call to the Assembly or a call to the Senate, expected to be there. And obviously, people have personal emergencies and such, and so perfect records are not expected. But this, where all 14 of the Senate Democrats decided en masse to leave the state, just so that the Senate would not have a quorum to conduct business, frankly, is pretty much a desperation kind of move. That they knew they were going to lose the vote, so like children, they took their marbles and went home, or went to Illinois in this case.
Right. And so what is going to be the outcome of this? I mean, eventually, they have to come back, and there has to be a vote.
Correct.
So will there be a vote, and will the bill pass, or will this go to the Supreme Court in the state? What's going to happen?
Ultimately, they're going to have to come back. They'll either have to come back. In some sense, they'll probably be shamed into coming back, because people will look at this as a very childish move that it is.
Right. It doesn't do any good for the Democratic Party.
It does no good for the Democrats. It does no good for the public employees. Because if we don't use Governor Walker's repair bill, which is to as I said, moderate increases in the pension and health care contributions, then what we're looking at is layoffs. And Governor Walker has talked about layoffs in the 5,000 to 6,000 person range. And so public employees will lose their jobs because these Democrat senators didn't want to do their job.
Right, and certainly they understand that.
I believe that they do. But as I said, it seems to me this is something that they're doing because they don't want to debate the issue. They don't, and Governor Walker was quite plain during his campaign that we need to fix this financially. We also need to give the municipalities and state government the flexibility, and so that's why there is also things in terms of limiting collective bargaining to just salaries. And so because of that, that flexibility is necessary, again, because we're dealing with financially straight times. We don't have the money to just throw around. We have to make sure we're using it wisely, and the encumbrance that the union has added to particularly the county and local governments. Governor Walker's mentioned this in terms of his time as a county executive, when he said, the collective bargaining was one of the things that was preventing him from doing his job as county executive.
Right, and Governor Walker has been a David standing up to the Goliath, the unions in this, and set an example which is really just the tip of the iceberg for the country. I mean, Wisconsin is facing budget problems that many states in the country are facing. And don't you think that this is going to be an example for other states
certainly,
that are going to follow suit in the same manner?
That's probably one of the reasons why we're seeing folks from out of state coming here, Jesse Jackson and Richard Trumka, because they know that, yes, Wisconsin is going to be a bellwether in that regard. Realize that there are 22 states that are right-to-work states, so for them that's less of an issue because they've already dealt with it, that public employees, you cannot be forced to join in a union just because you work as a bus driver.
Right. So we really are setting the example, like almost a bellwether example for the rest of the country on this. And we need to be proud of what our governor has done.
Oh, clearly we need to stand with Governor
and
Walker.
stay
yes.
with him.
Yes.
And we have today, the Tea Party members went out there and were in full force. Of course, they were like a quarter of what the rest of the protesters were, but they were out there and they were standing up for the governor and what he represents. So, Peter, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. We really know that we really appreciate you coming on the show today, and we appreciate all your knowledge and what you have to offer to the subject. And we thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.